Boom, email comes, contract's canceled. What? Like, what? What? You call up the agent, straight, get the FU button straight to voicemail. I'm like, fuck. Text the guy, call me ASAP. Emailing the guy, call me ASAP. Then I get a response. Literally, this is a response. I can't talk to you. Have your attorney call mine. Fuck out of here. Like, you're going to call yourself a business person, and then you're going to go on social media and talk about how you're this great agent? This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy, giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate. We cover market trends, news, and give you the honest answers that will keep you ahead of the real estate game. Today, we're going to talk about a big topic that's happening in the industry, and that is contract cancellations. We're seeing a lot of them, and it's a big talk. They actually hit the highest level since the pandemic recently. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the industry and why this is. What is a contract cancellation? A contract cancellation is a property that when it goes under contract, after it's under contract, the people kill the deal and they cancel it. And that's just kind of like what a contract cancellation is. It's simple as that. Somebody moves forward and then kills the deal. How often do you typically see contract cancellations? Honestly, we usually lose like one a month, maybe two. In June, we had the highest levels I've had in my career. It was a big problem. And we also noticed a lot of properties come back on the market due to contract cancellations. There are some agents who say they never see them, but that sound like a jerk. But if you do a lot of business and you don't see contracts die, like you're just lying. It's a normal part of the business. Not even Mickey Mantle bat at 1,000, so you're going to lose some. The goal is to lose as minimal as possible and do everything you can not to lose it. But you're definitely going to be losing, at the volume we're doing. I'm surprised we only lose one or two a month. So at what stages can you purchase, at what stages can you cancel a contract? Any stage as a buyer. During the first 5 business days, the buyer and seller could cancel for any reason they want. It's called attorney review. The buyer has an out of attorney review. A buyer has an out during inspection. A buyer has an out during condo docs. And sometimes we don't get condo docs till like the day of close. Like we get the 22.1 or the PAL, which is a paid assessment letter. And they find out, hey, the assessments went up $100 and the buyers just killed the deal. And then the fourth one is financing. So those are your 4 main outs. And you can pull out of the deal at any point and lose absolutely nothing by using any of those outs. Now, you can also just say you're not going to close. And in all honesty, the seller's not going to do anything about it. They can threaten to sue you and they're going to take you to court and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure everybody out there is watching this like, of course they would take them to court and of course they'd win. Well, okay. For anybody out there who's actually ever gone to court for earnest money, first off, it's like an 8-month wait right now. And you can't sell your property if it's tied up in a court to do it because there's a lien against the property. So now the property's unsellable. So now you're going to wait 8 months. And again, guys, do the math of if the property's vacant, how much is that going to cost you in 8 months compared to how much money you're going to make on earnest money. And then, you got to hope to win the case, which, usually it's like an ironclad, but they never give you the whole thing. You take a piece of it, then you got to pay your court costs and your attorney and all this other fees. And at the end of the day, is it worth it? So, a buyer can really screw a seller over. I think it's terrible. But I'll tell you right now, technically speaking, you want to kill a deal. Go ahead. And if the buyer kills the deal and they got deep pockets and they have a better attorney than you, that's how America works. Whoever's got the best legal team wins. There's a million cases I could talk about with that. What contract cancellation trends are you seeing in the market right now? Just a lot of buyers doing what I call the good old Texas two-step. Go under contract, they want to brag that they got it, and then they're just kind of like backing off of it. A lot of buyers have gotten extremely cocky with the market. They're like, hey, you need me more than I need you. And any little bump in the road, it's like you're driving down a nice road and there's like a little bump, and they're like, I got to back out of this thing. Things are going to get crazy. So there's just a lot of fear-mongering going on right now, and I think there's a lot of people who aren't really buyers, and the first sign of like a little bit of trouble, they use that as an out because they just don't have the stomach for it. I just tell people like that, and I could kind of weed them out even when we're looking. Like, if you're not a buyer, like, just let's not put everybody through this. People don't realize, like, you're ruining a seller's life when you pull out of a deal. and I'm not saying like there isn't just cause, like there's something wrong with the condo docs or like the place is a piece of shit and the inspection's terrible. I'm not saying that there's not reasons, but I mean, I would say like 8 times out of 10 lately, people are just pulling out of deals to pull out of deals. And it's just cockiness and fear of the market. Is it always the buyers who cancel the contract? I mean, in our markets, yes. I mean, I've actually had a seller cancel the contract one time. Minus that one time, I haven't seen it. Let me back it up. During the really, really crazy part of the markets, you'll see a little bit more of sellers cancel the contracts because they'll get more money. Even that's rare. But again, the majority, like hands down majority of the time, it's a buyer that cancels the contract. What repercussions are there when a buyer cancels a contract? I mean, in all honesty, not much. I mean, there are some cases. I've kept earnest money twice in my entire career, 2 times. And we bluffed the buyer good enough and had an attorney write a good enough letter. But, I mean, I've just, and I could tell you the property if you want to see it. I had a buyer. I represent the seller. I had a buyer walk up. We open up the door at the final walkthrough. We're closing an hour later. He goes to step in. He doesn't step in. He goes, "Hey, I'm not buying this property." And we're like, "Well, okay. You're going to buy the property." He's like, "What are you going to do about it?" Like, literally, that's what he said. He goes, "What are you going to do about it?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I going to do about it? You're going to buy the property." He's like, "What are you going to do about it?" I'm like, "I'll fucking sue you for everything you're worth, okay? We'll keep your earnest money, and I'll sit there and I won't allow you to make another purchase for the rest of your life, and your bank account will be my seller's." You know, of course, talking a big game. And he's like, "All right, try me. Let's see how it goes. Let's go to court." Walks away. Now, I talked to my seller's attorney because, I'm threatening the guy to be a jerk, but it's not my money. It's not my property. And I talked to my seller. My seller talks to his attorney. His attorney's like, "Well, listen, here's how much money I'm going to charge you to do this, but I don't do it. So I'm going to have to refer you to another guy." So we talked to another guy. Another guy's, "Listen, it's going to cost you about $20,000 to $25,000 of my fees in time if you win it." Now, we only had $15,000 in earnest money. So he's going to spend $25,000 to hopefully make the $15,000 back. And it's going to be tied up. So my seller's like, "Fuck, we lost." Now, I got him $1,000, or maybe it was $2,000, something like that, just from the buyer. I guess we'll call it in good faith. But yeah, that's what I'm telling you guys. Like, repercussions, like, honestly, if somebody really wants to be a jerk about it, they can do whatever they want. And I'm sure some people out there are sitting there saying, like, "Oh, that's not true, blah, blah." I'm telling you guys right now, anybody who's ever been in it, it's true. Talk to them, call an attorney up. Like, how smart is it to sue somebody to get your earnest money back, even if you 1,000% are correct? You could be 1,000% correct. Guys, the court systems are so far backed up on these issues, it's ridiculous. And because they hold a lien against the property, it means you cannot sell. So you have to settle this case to be able to sell your property, okay? What's the point of it? Just get back on the horse and get rid of it. Be done with it. It's terrible. It sucks. I'm not saying it doesn't suck. It's a flawed system, personally. I think it's a really flawed system. But, I didn't make the law. I just have to follow it. There's a lot of shit I don't like to do in the law. But guess what? I'm a law-abiding citizen, so we just got to do it. What is causing the higher amount of contract cancellations? Stock markets, rate hike, fear-mongering. That's basically the 3. And I think there's a lot of people who got, like, juiced up to buy because all their friends bought, but they really weren't buyers. But they were like, "I got to buy because everybody else did it." And then they get into it like, they can't sleep. They're calling me nonstop. I could tell they're going to pull out. And then, like, they'll read something in the condo docs like, oh my God, this building is failing. You can't get a loan in here. I'm like, what are you anybody? There's been a million loans. Like, what's so bad about the building? It's like, there's just a lot going on. I'm like, okay, well, what are the things that are going on in the building that you don't feel comfortable about? And we could talk through them and we could get the answers, Like, there's just a lot. Like, okay, you're just not a buyer. I'm like, in those cases, I test people. I really do. I'm like, I don't know. You know what? Just got you 10 grand. How's that sound? They're like, no, just too much wrong in the building. Okay, we'll kill it. Call them back up. I got you 15 grand. Look at that. 15 grand in your pocket. They're like, no, And now, guys, I didn't have 15 grand in my pocket. I just said it to prove my point that they're just not buyers. They're just some people who are not buyers. We talk about this. It's a big thing we talk about in the office. It's like we'll meet a new client or something like that. And we'll be like, he's a buyer. Yeah, he's not a buyer. Because you can just tell. Like, the mentality is either there or it's not there. How do interest rates play into the contract cancellations? Big time. A lot of people were locked in at 3.5 when they first started looking in January, and today they're like 5.7. And a lot of people are like, crap, that's a 2% increase. I mean, it's almost double. So you're, double on the interest, and they're just too scared to buy at this point, so they're moving on. And I'm telling you guys right now, I mean, this podcast is behind when we release it, but today they announced it's at a 40-year high for inflation, which means interest rates, guess what, guys, are going to keep going up. Like, we're not going back. I know people are waiting for these things to drop down like 3% again. Like, you're going to be waiting probably, if you got kids right now and like they're young, you'll be waiting until they're in college. Like, they just look at the history timeline of how many times they got below like, 4%. Like, it's pretty much never, a couple months in the lifetime of the American, country. American average, guys, 6.5%, 7%. We're not even at average yet. We're heading there. We'll be there soon, but it is factored in the cancellations. What are common scenarios where you see contract cancellations? Inspection's a big one. There's a big one. Like, single-family homes suck. Like, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't like selling them. Like, you finally sell one of these damn things. And again, right now, I get it, guys. Single-family homes, like the hottest market. I'll tell you guys right now, one of the reasons I took my company downtown Chicago, and of course, we work Lincoln Park and Lakeview. Of course, I sell single-family homes. But, I mean, I started my career on the south side of Chicago and in the suburbs. And I would hate it because I like average market time usually in homes is like 120 to 200 days. Like right now that it's a day. Like, good luck for all you agents out there that got your license and you're selling them in a day, because like you're about to see like what it really takes to sell a house. It's like impossible. So like, you'd finally get one of these things under contract after like 180 days on the market, and then they do an inspection that dies, and then you go back on the market. It's the worst. I mean, pre-inspections and stuff like that we recommend on big single-family homes and things of that nature, but like that's always the big one. In condos, it's condo docs. That's a big one that drives me crazy too. It's like a buyer, I represent a lot, 50% of my business is sellers, 50% of my business is buyers. The thing that drives me nuts is like, we'll get a buyer that's buying one of our properties, so I represent the seller, and I don't have any control over the buyer. I can't call the person up, and I'm dealing with a newbie agent, or I'm dealing with an agent from the suburbs, and these buyers read like one thing in the condo docs, and they, shit their pants. And it's like, well, listen, like, guys, this isn't that big of an issue. And then the suburb agent's trying to tell me about like why it is. I'm like, listen, idiot. Like, how many condo sales have you done in your life? It's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm like, okay, but how many condo sales have you done in your career? I never understood why people tell you how many like years they've been in the business. Like, if you've been in the business for 20 years and you've done like $10 million of sales, like that's like a bad week, okay? Like, what does it have to do with anything? What is, like, you don't like go in any other industry and people are telling you like how many years they've been doing it. So like, my point is that like, you get these people, they don't know what they're doing, or a new agent, they don't know what they're doing. Their buyer freaks out about one small issue, which is probably not even a big issue, and the deal dies. So to me, in a normal market, inspections and condo docs are usually the two biggest factors that kill deals. Right now, I don't think that's the case. I think people are just using it as excuses. I just think people are nervous in general. I think people have gotten, like I said, a little bit of the Texas two-step in them, where they're just not really buyers, and they're fear-mongering and talking themselves out of it. Or they're talking to their friends. Their friends are like, well, I heard the economy is going to take a dip and that the market's going to drop, or the world's going to end. I mean, guys, like, why is it 6 months ago was the greatest world of all time and now it's the worst world of all time? Like, whatever just happened to being like, let's just fucking take a step back and relax. Like, just chill out for a minute. Like, I remember in 2020 when I was doing these, I was talking about like how everybody said nobody ever buy in America and that like the market was going to drop. And I told everybody like, watch out for the inventory levels. Inventory would be the biggest problem in America. And everybody on my YouTube page said I was an idiot. And all of a sudden inventory was the biggest problem in America. And people like, oh, how'd you predict that? Like, oh, okay, guys, well, just mentality. It's like right now, people are fearful that the market's going to drop so much down here and they're killing deals. Well, guess what? Our market, and the reason they're doing it, a big reason too, is they think the prices are going to drop. Well, it's hard for the markets that we work in to drop because you can't cool off if you never got hot. We've never been hot. A lot of portions of the market I'm selling in is down 20%. So if we lost 20% in value in the last 2.5 years, how are we going to get worse? I'm a big stat guy. So like, here's a great thing to look at, guys. We had 24 months of inventory in 2020. That's the highest amount of inventory in history in 50% of my markets. Today, we're at 6 months of inventory. Think about that. We've been dropping every single month in these markets while the rest of the country has been increasing inventory. Mark my words, guys, the cities are going to flourish when this recession hits. I read a great article the other day that talked about the Great Resignation, okay, where it talked about how all these people who quit their jobs in the beginning part of the year are now regretting it. And I keep telling people, not all these people have the power to pretty much dictate what their bosses can do. And when that happens and they lose the power and they get dictated back to, or forced to go back to work, you're going to see cities come back. Now, I'm going to do a podcast talking about this later, but like this all leads to why we're seeing a lot of cancellations, because people are they're fear-mongering and think the world's going to end. So it's just making them not want to buy, and they're like, hey, I just got to get out of it. Let's see here. How do you explain contract cancellations for your sellers? I mean, this is like the worst. I mean, we just had one where we were 2 or 3 days away from close, and they were like, we want $16,000. I'm like, why do we want $16,000? Like, inflation, assessment's going to go up. I'm like, okay. Like, so then I called the seller up. I'm like, listen, they want $16,000, right? Seller's like, why? I'm like, inflation. Like, does this make any sense? I'm like, yeah. I mean, they just want to fuck you. That's it. That's it. I mean, I've become more cynical as I've gotten older, and it's terrible. When you're like, you see those 7-year-old people and you're like, God, those guys are just like crabby. I kind of feel like I'm like heading towards that when I'm 70. I think a lot of it is because I see this like all the time. Like just people to screw people over for a couple bucks. It literally puts me in the worst mood, and I snap on people, and some people some days can be like, oh, Matt's an asshole. It's like, yeah. I just watched some guy just like try to screw somebody over for $16,000 because he knew he had the power in the situation, and he's such a piece of shit. He wanted to try to steal that money because he could. Like, I just don't like people who try to take advantage of the situation. And the worst part is that guy's going to walk around for the rest of his life taking advantage of other people who don't have the means to stand up to him. So me personally, I look at that guy like a bully, okay? And when I see a bully, I don't back down from a bully. I get in a bully's face and remind them that, hey, there's bigger bullies than you out there, and then you may be able to push some people around, but when you push me, I'm going to push you back. But the biggest problem is that I push a little bit harder than you're going to push. And that's the way I look at it. And that's what we're seeing a lot of times. So with these sellers, I have to call them up and be like, yeah, this guy tried to screw you over at $16,000. He's like, well, what would you do in this situation? I literally just say it like this. It's a math problem, okay? You get $16,000. You give him $16,000. We're now the lowest, one bedroom to ever sell in that building. Do you think you could get more than X? And if you feel like you get more than X, then, roll the dice and go back on the market. If you don't feel like you can, take the money, And in this situation, thought he could get more money, so we went back on the market. I'm not saying we won't. I'm just saying that's it. I had another situation, no joke. Person wanted $3,500 8 hours before close. Said they wanted $3,500. They blame like Windows. Seller again says, what do you do? I said, in this situation, I personally think we got more than what we should have got. And if we go back on the market today, I'm 100% not getting the price we have. I'm going to get less. And then when you factor in the money you're giving, we're still netting ahead. So we still won. You just got fucked. That's the best way to look at it. You got pretty much, they're pretty much highway robbing you. It's extortion. That's the word I'm looking for. Extortion. They're extorting you because they know they can. And my seller listened to me and they took it and we closed. But, that's how I'm explaining these things. I have to tell people like, we're extortion, we're getting screwed over, but at the end of the day, like you've already, you're going to lose money. Do you want to lose more? And I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just breaking down the numbers. Well, okay, and the math problem doesn't make more sense to go back on, or does the math problem mean that you got to go here? And it's tough because like a lot of sellers look at their properties on an emotional basis. And then you got me coming at you with a math equation. And, sometimes they're screaming bloody murder at me about like, how it's terrible and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to be terrible. I'm not. I'm just trying to save everybody from themselves. Like we're getting screwed over here. I'm trying to figure out what's going to lose you the least amount of money. That's it. And that's why I look at it like a math problem. It's like, where do you lose the least? And when we just get these, this is the other problem. It's like there's big name companies. I won't name them, but if you're watching this, you kind of know them. You know who I'm talking about. You just get a letter of cancellation. Like you just open it. Like this happens late in June. It's happened like 3 times a week. Boom, email comes, contract's canceled. What? Like what? What? You call up the agent straight. Get the FU button straight to voicemail. I'm like, fuck. Text the guy, call me ASAP. Emailing the guy, call me ASAP. Then I get a response. Literally, this is a response. I can't talk to you. Have your attorney call mine. Fuck out of here. Like, you're going to call yourself a business person, and then you're going to go on social media and talk about how you're this great agent? Like, call somebody up. So now I got to call my seller up. Now what's my seller do? My seller's like, hey, Matt, why'd they cancel? I don't know. Well, why? I don't know. I got a cancellation letter. I can't. I'm only as good as the information given to me. Right now, the information given to me was a letter that says we cancel the contract. You know? So now I got to, like, put my tail between my legs. And now I'm taking a licking from my seller because he's pissed off, which I would be too. And listen, I'll be a punching bag. Like, I get it. Like, if I'm that seller, I'm irate. I'm furious. And the only person they got to yell at about how mad they are is this guy. So I'll take the punches. I'm cool. I could get screamed at all day. My dad was 6'4", 250, used to scream in my face 7-8 times a day. So I'll do it. I'll take it. But, like, at the end of the day, like, it sucks because now I'm trying to get a hold of that agent. And again, it's kind of like the lesson I tell you. Like, you got to teach these people a lesson to realize, like, hey, this is an industry. We can't just act like idiots. Now, you know, the proper way when a deal dies, the proper way, you call up the other agent. You say, hey, my buyer's canceling because of X. I understand you're very upset. I would be upset too. I've tried everything I could to save this. They refuse to listen to me on it. I think, you know, my guy's being a jerk. I'm an asshole for having to make this call. I want to deeply apologize to you. I know. And then, you know, then you're going to get yelled at by the agent. I'll take it. And then I apologize again. And then I'm done. And then that agent is screwed because he's got to go back to his seller. And any agent that's worth anything will understand that, like, you're going to lose deals and we can't control every situation. Okay. Now, the problem is when the agent calls you up to tell you they're canceling and they blame you in some capacity when you've done nothing wrong and it's really on them. In the aspects of, like, let's say there's GFCIs wrong in an inspection, the buyer's agent calls you up screaming at you like, well, it's the GFCIs in the kitchen, so we're canceling the deal. I'm like, that's fine, I'll fix the GFCIs. They're like, yeah, you're out to get us. You put those in there for a reason. You're like, what are you talking about? What do you even talk? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, I see that happen all the time, like something stupid like that. But the reality is you're supposed to call and present why your client's canceling to the other agent. Then you, as the agent, when you're on the sell side, you have to call the seller up. And if you have another good agent on the other side, you explain what happened. Like, listen, they didn't like the condo docs. It sucks. I can't change that. They found out that there's a big special assessment coming up. I know that you're going to pay for it, but they're not comfortable with what's going to happen in the future, knowing that, you know, there's only going to be about $50,000 left in the bank account when it was just $8 million. Like, some people aren't going to feel, I can't change that mentality. Now that we know this information, we should disclose this up front so we don't run into this situation again. But that's how you do. You have to calmly present to the person with the facts of what's happening and why, and then try to make everybody comfortable. Nobody is going to be happy when a deal dies. Nobody on any side, okay? But the thing I never get is, like, when people cancel and then they're, like, cocky about it. Even on, like for clients out there, like, if you're a buyer and you just, like, think it's funny to cancel, like, honestly, like, you're just a jerk because, like, you're really screwing with these sellers. Like, these guys got, like, some of them can have kids. They're packing up. They're you just, like, mentally broke those people. If you're sellers, you have to understand that, like, you're pretty much on pins and needles. And if you're an agent, learn how to do your job correctly. You know? Like, the problem is like, and the thing I never understand is, like, why agents don't get mad when the deal dies. Like, I get furious. There's a lot of agents, like the one agent with 16,000, she's like, oh, no biggie, I'll find something else. And then I looked up her stats, and she's done like $2 million in sales this year. I'm like, you need this sale. Like, this is a $600,000 sale. This is literally like pretty much a fourth of your year you're about to sell. Like, I mean, you make money. Realtors, we make money off commission. So when you lose a deal, you're pretty much hitting a reset button and starting over. That's another thing I explained to the sellers. You think, like, I want to lose this? Like, I was about to get paid. I was one day away from getting paid and paying my staff and paying my taxes and all that stuff. And now I have to reset and pay my people double to make the same amount of money I was just about to make. You know? Like, I mean, I know, like, the TV shows make, like, real estate and commissions look like glamorous. Like, we make, like, they'll be like, oh, everybody makes 6%. You're making all this cash. Like, we don't make anywhere near that. And then when you factor in how much money goes out, like, every dollar you get, 50% is right to taxes. Now you got 50% left over. You got to pay all your staff, okay? You got to pay for all your showings, all your marketing, all that other stuff. I mean, maybe you get, like, a tenth of what you make off a commission check. It's just, like, it always reminds me of, like, Half-Baked. For anybody who ever saw Half-Baked out there, right? Like, you got the cup, and he's got the money in there, and it just keeps going down, and he's just left with, like, nothing. That's how commissions are. Like, you get the check, and then boom, it goes away. You're like, oh, I got $50 left over from all that hard work. So yeah, I don't want to do the job twice, and then pretty much I'm paying. the way I operate in my job, like if I have to sell somebody's two properties twice, when it comes to taxes and staff, like I pretty much just paid that seller to sell it. So I'm literally working my ass off to pay them money. Like, doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth. And I'm not saying that's a seller's problem. I'm not going to charge any more money. I'm just saying, like, my point is like, that's why we don't want the deals to die. Like, I don't want to lose money because somebody else is incompetence. Like, it drives me crazy. Our cancellation specific to any type of home or particular area, I think first-time buyers and luxury buyers are the main ones canceling right now. That's the biggest one. Why is the cancellation deal rate so high right now? Everything we've talked about. And like I said, there's June was 15% higher cancellations than any other month. 15%, guys. That's huge. Okay, not 10%, 15%. And like I said earlier, it's the highest cancellation rate since the day after the pandemic was announced. I remember the day after the lockdown. I'm not the pandemic. The day after the lockdown. The day after the lockdown was announced, it was like World War III. I mean, I literally felt like I got the shit kicked out of me because we had so many deals die and so many people screaming at me. I lost more money that day than I have in my entire life in one sitting. Now, my June was equally as bad, but at least it was spread out throughout like a month instead of a 3-day period. Do buyers have too much room to negotiate right now? It's very relative to the type of property. Some instances they do have a lot of room. Some instances they don't. Appraisals don't play much in the contract cancellations here. We don't really have, again, guys, because our property values haven't gone way up. Going into my fact of saying like you can't cool off. It was never hot. Like I've had no appraisal issues like ever, like at all this year. Not a single one. Because guess what? I don't have anybody like ghastly overpaying for anything because again, nothing's really going for more. Like I get calls right now, which is why I know the market's coming back from people coming from out of state or international. Like, hey, I'm confused because like I'm looking at this property and it's selling for less than what it sold for in 2019. Like, what am I missing? And I'm like, what you're missing is that our property values dropped. And then people are like, I'm sorry, I'm calling about this property. I'm like, yeah. And what I'm telling you is the properties in that area dropped. And like, but I live in Florida and my property values, they went up 300%. I'm not understanding. I'm like, yeah, this is downtown Chicago. So again, guys, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't compare other cities to us. We're on our own kind of like a little platform here. And when you want to talk about why things are happening in certain ways, like our appraisals factoring into the contract cancellation parts, it's not here. What can you do as a seller when the buyer cancels their contract? Get it on the market as quick as possible. Learn from your mistakes. If it's like a condo doc thing, get that information up front. If it's an inspection issue, get that up front. But if you just dealt with somebody who wasn't a buyer, it is what it is. What are the legal impacts of canceling a contract? Nothing. I mean, like, honestly, nothing. Nothing's going to happen. I don't care what anybody tells me. Are these cancellation trends the same for new construction? Yeah. Yeah, because some of these people went on a contract like a while ago and they were like juiced up about it. And then, there's a lot of new delays in new construction and people aren't as juiced up anymore about it. And then they're reading about the market's terrible. So then they kill the deal. Can real estate agents help save the deal? Yes. Like 1,000% yes. Like, I mean, I get calls every day from buyers who have cold feet and you talk them off the ledge. Now, if they just don't want to buy, I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to push you to buy something. I don't give like, don't buy it then. Like, it's not like, I'm not going to be like a douche, like contradicting everything I said, but like, I'm not going to put a gun to somebody. I'm not a car salesman. Okay. I'm not going to put a gun to somebody's head to buy it if they don't want to buy it. But like, there's just people who are just like nervous. They're just nervous in general. They're like, I don't know what these condo docs mean. Like, is this inspection like really a big deal? Like, dude, it's caulking in a bathroom. Like, it's $100. Like, relax. They're like, oh, I had a friend that told me it was $7,000. It was $7,000 to caulk a bathroom. Like, get out of here. Like, I remodel that whole thing for that much. But that's the problem. And this is the difference between a good agent and a bad agent. A good agent's seen everything. You can't tell me anything that I haven't seen. There's nothing I haven't seen. I've sold over 5,000 properties in my career. There's literally nothing I have not come across or seen in my career. Okay? So, like, when somebody tells me, like, well, XYZ is wrong with the condo docs, like, dude, that's every building. Well, I'll get agents from the suburbs who call me up. I'm like, dude, there's only $2,000 in reserves. There should be $100,000 in reserves. I'm like, there should be 100,000 reserves. They're like, yeah, this building's got 2,000. I'm like, okay, it's a 3-unit building, buddy. The monthly HOAs are $150 a month. Okay? There's 3 units. 3 times 150. It's $450. Okay? Take $450 Divide that by $100,000, and how many months would it take to get to that in the reserves? Oh, and by the way, that's not factoring into the fact that they have to pay water, garbage, extra maintenance, common heat and electric in the hallways. Like, what do you think? Like, money just grows on trees? Like, if you have 3-unit building and you got $450 a month between the three, you like maybe are putting away like $20 to $30 a month, like maybe. Okay, so if you got $20 or $30 a month, you're putting away into your reserves. Like, where are you coming up with $100,000? But again, that's how agents can save a deal. So if I have a buyer that asks me, I break down the math from like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. Now that makes a lot of sense. Boom, just saved a deal. I'm on the sell side. The agent calls me up. It's like, hey, my buyer's concerned about this. Here's why. And I'm not sure. I don't say it as a dick. I'm just saying, like, listen, like, I get it. Not everybody's going to know everything. Just like if somebody approaches me nicely with, hey, I have these questions, of course. Let me get these answers quick. I want to help you. Let me get these answers as quick as possible. We're on the same team. Let's help each other out here. Everybody wants the same thing. The buyer, the seller, and both agents want it to close. Let's all work together. The biggest problem is you get what I call these deal killer agents who come in, they want to put on their Superman cape. They tear apart the property. They go into it trying to get their clients to kill the deal. I never understand what these agents are doing when they do that. I never understand that. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, do you think that person's gonna be like, oh, I could have had the place I loved, but my agent told me something that actually wasn't even relevant that made me kill it. So I bought a shittier place that I don't like that much, but it actually ends up being an overall worse investment, but he told me he thought it was good. Okay, how many sales does he have? Oh, $1 million in 4 years? Okay, he sounds like he really knows what he's doing. Because if he really knew what he was doing, selling $1 million in a day is really not that difficult, okay? So yes, an agent can make or break a deal. And I will tell you, if somebody asks me, what are some of my biggest reasons why I'm so successful in this business? It's because I understand how to work a deal. I understand what buyers and sellers have in their minds, and I can sympathize with it and talk you through it. Everybody, and I mean everybody, gets a little bit nervous when they purchase. I'm buying a place. I'm combining my units. I'm buying a unit next door. I was very confident in it, and I'm closing tomorrow on it. And I got to admit, I'm like a little bit like, fuck, did I make the right decision? Is this the right move? Should I bought somewhere else? Should I bought a house? I mean, I'm about to have 3 kids. Is this stupid? Like, what am I thinking? Right? No, I know I'm fine. I know it is. It's just, and I do this all day for my living. But even myself, I find myself being like a little bit jitterish. And that's my point, is that buyers and sellers have those same feelings too, except they're not doing this all day. So of course they're naturally gonna get nervous. Most people aren't spending $1 million every single day of the week. So when they're spending $1 million and it's their first property they're buying, yeah, they're gonna shit their pants. Or it's $200,000, it doesn't matter what the price point is. People are gonna get nervous. So an agent could come in and help talk you through it. Are buyers getting tougher on inspections? Absolutely. Like before, a buyer would do an inspection and be like, let's just pray to God. Let's just pray to God that like we have no problems, because even if there is, we're going to buy it. Now buyers like get an inspection, we're just getting the whole list. Like, hey, fix everything on here. It's funny. I'm going to tell you, I talked to an agent in another state, and she said to me, she goes, I'm getting really nervous. I said, what are you so nervous about? Like, she's like, the market changed. I'm like, well, yeah, and your market should have, I mean, the fact that you've had less than a week of inventory seems stupid. But she's like, I know. But she's like, I had a buyer the other day. They asked me something crazy. I said, what did your buyer ask you? She goes, they asked me to do a property inspection. I said, I'm not following. What do you mean? She goes, my buyers, they asked me to do a property inspection. I said, I understand what you're saying, but like, I don't understand why that's a problem. She goes, Matt, I haven't done a property inspection since the lockdown. I said, what do you mean? She goes, nobody does property inspections. Everybody waives inspections. She goes, now people are asking for them again. And all the home inspection companies in my city went out of business because nobody was giving them any business. I said, so did you actually really think that people wouldn't do inspections for the rest of our lives again? She's like, well, I just kind of figured that's how it would be. And this is why I say there's a problem, why contracts are canceling, and why this all happened, is because people have got their head in the sand that they actually think that what's been happening the last couple of years is now the real life. Everybody thinks that property is going to sell a day on the market. Everybody thinks that everybody's cash and nobody's got any debt and that everybody's richer than hell, okay? Inflation, guys, the stock market, it's going to be the equalizer. It's going to have people kind of wake up from their slumbers and realize, holy shit, I got to start working for my boss again. I'm not going to be worth $1 million doing nothing, sitting in my underwear, okay? And this is all what I'm talking about. It all relates. It all kind of interconnects in the sense of being like the fact that people thought that buyers wouldn't at some point do inspections again or be tougher on inspections again is one of the reasons why contract cancellations are up. And why is because people's changes, their mentality is changing, and they're so confused because we're going from one market to another pretty quickly, and they're just freaking out, and they're like, I'm just going to cancel. I'm just going to cancel. I'm panicking. I'm canceling. And that's why. It's all directly correlated. What recommendations do you have for the buyer and sellers navigating the market right now? Just don't be dramatic. Honestly, just don't be dramatic. If you're a buyer, the world's not going to end, okay? We go through cycles. This is America, okay? We are built on really good economies, going to really bad economies, then going back to really good economies. Don't you remember, guys, the Great Recession, and nobody had jobs, and there was 50 people applying for one job, and the world was going to end, and we were never going to have jobs again, and all of a sudden 2013 hit, and it was great, and the market's been unbelievable, and then the pandemic hit, and everybody said that nobody's ever going to have money again, and the world was going to end. In March 2020, the stock market hit bottoms, and nobody's going to buy real estate, and the market took off. And it was the greatest economy. And then everything was great. And now the market's starting to churn again, and people are like, oh my God, it's great. Don't be knee-jerk. That's it. Just don't be a knee-jerk reaction buyer. Like things are going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And if you're a seller, don't panic because your friend sold 2 days on the market in March, and now you're on the market for the same price and haven't sold after a week. Like it'll sell. You might have to take a little bit less. Maybe your neighbor got a little bit more of a price because the market was a little bit different. But things will sell. Everybody just relax. Let's stop being a knee-jerk reaction society. It's going to be okay. Life's going to go on. Deals are going to die, but real estate's still going to sell. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.